Listen to the wind. Drifting past your senses is the fuel that fires the imagination. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. Consider the element that floods into your lungs, the very same substance that long ago fanned an ancient spark, ignited by a primeval author, chiseling veiled petroglyphs across a dim cave wall. Carried on a breeze spanning eons, it was the breath that gave rise to dinosaurs, grew papyrus for paper, and dried vibrant oils brushed over canvas. It has since walked on the surface of the moon. It fondly recollects a childhood memory, violently reshapes the landscape of history, and blows away the fog surrounding the unknown. It rushes by in a heartbeat, inhaled at first, exhaled at last. One moment here, the next gone into thin air.
Another migraine. 15 minutes before my session. Outstanding. Anything to keep me from digging down and getting somewhere with this pointless therapy. I already think I know what's wrong. A theory, at least. And if I'm right, so what? I'm not alone. The end justifies the means. Oh, dear God, I said aloud as I ground my knuckles into the throbbing temples of my skull. The dissection of Jake Barlow, or more specifically, the ongoing and unnecessary tinkering into the finite recesses of Jake Barlow's shadowy shades of gray matter. A concerted effort to uncover the origin of these goddamn headaches. One way or another, there's something going on upstairs that doesn't conform to the widely accepted psychological norm. My brain chemistry isn't mixed up properly. Shaken, not stirred. Or maybe it's just that my neurological glass is only half full, or perhaps half empty. Now, let's make something perfectly clear. I am not suicidal. On the contrary, I enjoy life, at least I had enjoyed life, up to and until several months ago, a change in attitude coinciding with the onslaught of these damnable headaches. Every day at about this same time, excruciating pain across the frontal lobes, a cringe-worthy pressure that feels like it's pushing hard enough against the inside of my skull to crack things wide open. Honestly, when one of these migraines hit, I think I'd be perfectly fine with letting my brain pan split in two like Humpty Dumpty, spilling the contents all over the rain-soaked sidewalk beneath my feet. No one's gonna be able to put Jake Barlow back together again.
Are you sick, young man? You look sick.
The voice startled me, derailed my train of thought, an act that now takes all of my focused concentration to maintain. Turning, I saw an old woman crouched down in a darkened parking deck stairwell. Her clothing was stained, tattered, and completely soaked through by the rain. All telltale indications of long-term homelessness. The only detail that seemed somewhat unusual and out of place about her was the cardboard sign she clenched tightly and prominently in her outstretched hands. No desperate plea for money or meager scraps of food, just a crudely handwritten Bible verse. Genesis 3:5. Sick? I responded. No, not exactly sick. Headache is all. It'll pass. I kept on walking then, hurriedly splashing my way toward the door of my psychologist's office building, not only to get out of the rain, but also to leave this poor, destitute soul to her disjointed ramblings. Briskly striding away, I heard her call out after me, one last aberrant notion that unnerved me considerably.
For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. Eve did not tempt Adam with the apple. She inseminated him with it. This headache of yours is not exclusively yours. As sure as there is climate change, young man, our true identity is about to be revealed. Global warming is just preparation for the next stage in our evolution. We all suffer from headaches now. All of us.
It wasn't that her revelation came as any surprise. On the contrary, I'd had plenty of time to formulate a similar conclusion. Over-the-counter pain relief has been flying off of store shelves for weeks. No, months actually. So much so that it has become a news item with ramifications that even the likes of COVID couldn't compare. Hospitals, overwhelmed with patients suffering from mind-numbing pain, all similarly diagnosed with the same physiological manifestations. Brain swelling, increased neurological activity in areas of the brain previously thought to be unused. That other mysterious and apparently extraneous gray matter we don't tap into. I stopped for a moment and turned just in time to see the old woman shake 2 capsules from a plastic pill bottle and hurriedly ingest them without anything to wash them down. The condition is certainly widespread now, I thought. Interesting. With more than enough on my mind already, I proceeded to push my way around the revolving glass door leading into the lobby of the Kingston building, a 12-story office complex housing the office of Dr. Kiernan Kincaid, eminent psychologist and my own personal tour guide for exploring the neuronic pathways of my supposedly fevered brain. 10th floor, down a long hall, 3rd door on the right, room 1013. The little sojourn upstairs was almost always solitary. In this, and all of my other preceding appointments, not once have I shared an elevator ride up with someone else along the way. Is that unusual, you ask? I suppose not. It just seems that rush hour doesn't amount to much anymore. Even the downtown traffic is tolerable these days. 7 p.m., always the last appointment of the day, and always on time. Always. The lateness of the hour is my own doing, rush hour or not. Off work at 6, just enough time for a quick Uber across town. Turns out I seem to be a lot more open and honest under the soft artificial lights that illuminate Kincaid's office after dark, as opposed to the harsh sunlight of day. The outer walls of Kincaid's inner sanctum were lined with glass, which, I decided, could substantially exacerbate the migraine. No thanks. By the time I finally made it to the office, opened the door and stepped into the waiting room, it felt like my proverbial egg was just about ready to hatch.
Introduction to Jacob Barlow, Senior Art Director for a major New York advertising agency. Mr. Barlow, along with a sizable portion of the world population, have all, of late, been contending with a debilitating series of excruciating headaches, the severity of which is more than sufficient to seek out prompt medical attention. Pharmaceuticals notwithstanding, Jacob's general practitioner has since labeled his particular cranial distress as a direct result of overwhelming stress in the workplace, and has subsequently referred him to a psychologist for therapy. Although tonight's appointment is one of an ongoing series of sessions, the usual topic for discussion may, in fact, turn out to be a conclusion. Diagnosis: the end of an era. Jacob Barlow, self-absorbed in his quest to find an answer, and, for the moment, self-contained, as yet, unwilling to come out of his own particular shell of thin air.
Even before I had a chance to snatch up a magazine and take a seat, Kincaid's receptionist slid open her little glass window and peeked out.
Mr. Barlow, she's ready for you now.
"Are you sure?" I replied, half in jest. I'm not sure that anyone is ready for what I have to say. The receptionist smiled politely in response, and then dispassionately closed the window and switched off her desk lamp, probably more than ready to call it a day. I can't say for certain, but I thought I heard her pop the lid off a pill bottle of some kind. I shuffled through the inner doorway, leading to Kincaid's office, and knowingly sprawled myself out across the chase lounge, eager to get things underway. By now, my head was pounding, and there was a pretty wicked ringing of tinnitus in my ears. I guess the level of severity must have been apparent on my face.
Overwhelmed?
My therapist's voice was, I'm sure, subdued and intentionally soothing. I've always wondered how she might sound outside of these formal surroundings, shouting for the kids to come in for supper, or maybe in the break room when she inadvertently spills coffee on her pristinely tailored blouse and pencil skirt. You're the expert, I responded. You tell me.
In your case, I'm no expert,
she said.
Shall we dabble in the trappings of science fiction again tonight, Jacob?
Is that all we're doing here? Dabbling? I fired back, tentatively dipping our collective fingers into a pond of the unthinkable. Kincaid studied me closely across the polished veneer of her desktop, looking, I suppose, for any telltale signs of underlying psychosis and distress.
So you're still convinced that the headaches are a symptom of some sort of global contagion or infestation? That there is some kind of otherworldly force gradually seeping into our society that is intent on taking over? The seeds of an invasion?
No, I replied. There's no longer any doubt of all that. Now I'm wondering, what is the point of entry? How the hell do they get in?
They?
My therapist responded.
What are we talking about, Jacob? Voices? Are you hearing voices now?
No, I responded. Not anything as commonplace as voices in my head. Alien entities of some kind that have been busy gestating in there since the day I was born. The day any of us were born. No, Doc. These aren't just murmuring voices. They're more like the birth cries of brain bugs, parasites, the larvae of something that is evolving inside our heads. How long have they been with us? How did they get in? Through the sinuses? Ears? Hell, for that matter, maybe they don't even manifest as anything physical whatsoever in the beginning. Maybe they seep in through the eyes, transmitted by light waves that infect the rods and cones inside the eyeball. Who knows? What if the world population is born with a brain that was never their own in the first place? Brain bug from birth. Maybe the alien is nothing more than a chromosome from a strand of extraterrestrial DNA, sexually transmitted by a patient zero astronaut who brought it down on re-entry and then shared it several times over again during re-entry. No pun intended.
Alien? Do I understand you correctly? You're suggesting the existence of some kind of extraterrestrial life form that gestates inside the head of a human host, either using grey matter as nutrient or...
I interrupted her abruptly. Or that said body, our bodies, were never intended as the culmination of human evolution in the first place. You've heard the term, jars of clay. Maybe we're all more like preserves, a container put up on a shelf for future consumption. Vessels whose sole purpose is to provide food and mobility to a fledgling race of life forms that were either destined to be the master race on planet Earth from the beginning, or to invade, conquer, and take over. Like puppeteers, pulling strings of the nervous system from the friendly confines inside your head. I don't know. This is all just speculation. Dr. Kincaid rolled her eyes, sighed heavily, and nibbled on the eraser of her ever-sharp pencil, like some kind of nervous tick.
So let me get this straight. Now, you're saying that all of collective human history is just a precursor to facilitate the evolution of something we, humanity, never knew we were becoming in the first place? Jacob, that's ludicrous.
She exclaimed. Is it? I countered. Doesn't align with your notion of religion or reality in general? What if there was a worm in the apple on the tree of knowledge? Kincaid chuckled dryly.
And I suppose Lucifer was less a fallen archangel than he was an alien snake who landed his flying saucer in the Garden of Eden to infect the race of man. Is that how you're reading it?
There's a homeless woman camping on the sidewalk outside your building whose little cardboard sign seems to vindicate this wild theory of mine. It's almost an answer to the problem of a missing link, isn't it? Humankind, just a bunch of overgrown monkeys shambling around the landscape, looking for little scraps of food to keep them alive. Java, Cro-Magnon, Neanderthal, was a species of ancient man first infected by some kind of sinuous creature shrouded in a tree. The apple, offered to this early, missing link, contained a contaminant that lodged itself into the gray matter and so initiated the gestation process. Literally, the tree of knowledge had created that which would become modern man. Maybe the tree was just a metaphor, a way for the observer to rationalize the vision, the conception, brought down from the heavens after all. Creation and evolution intertwined. Since that moment, the egg has been maturing, generation after generation, waiting for a precise, ungodly moment. Waiting, with the patience of eons for what is happening right now.
Jacob, please.
Kincaid cut me off.
You can't possibly believe that the biblical tree of knowledge was some sort of alien plant life that turned us all into incubators to grow a master race of earthlings. Strange beings that lie dormant inside the human head for millions of years. Brain bugs, as you call them. And what? Widespread headaches are a precursor? A symptom of some thing that has finally matured to term and is just about to hatch? Jacob, would you listen to yourself? God is not an alien.
Frustrated that my therapist, of all people, could be so closed-minded, I tried a different tact. Take it all back even further. Not every amoeba or single-celled organism realized its full potential. How many untold millions of life forms, swimming in that first puddle of goo, have emerged to become what destiny intended them to be? What was in the mix? Aren't we all supposedly made from the stuff of the stars? Each successive generation wiggled a little bit closer until it arrived at some kind of nebulous, life-changing moment. Early man made it pretty close to the top of the food chain. Then what? God? Aliens? The monolith? What if that stuff of the stars came down from the heavens and impregnated the egg? Our egg.
I'm sorry, Jake, you lost me. Egg? What egg? In some unsuspecting womb? Immaculate conception?
I stood up then, crossing the room to a long shelf built into the far wall, adorned with various abstract trinkets to lend character to the office. One item in particular caught my eye and seemingly gave credence to my theory. A bronze reproduction of Ape with Skull, a well-known work by German sculptor Hugo Reinhold. Carefully picking up the sculpture, I walked back to Kincaid's desk and placed it down on the desktop in front of her. Pointing to the skull in the ape's outstretched hand, I said, "This is the egg. Genesis 3:5. The skull. All of us. We're all eggheads. Throughout all of human history, the eggs have been gestating. Here now, in our generation, the eggs are hatching, Doctor. The reason for all the unused gray matter is just about ready to reveal itself. God help us all." As if on cue, Kincaid literally bit the eraser completely off of her pencil and then tossed the writing instrument across the room. In what seemed to me to be a fit of barely controlled rage, she wrenched open a drawer of her desk and retrieved a bottle of extra-strength acetaminophen, hurriedly fiddling with the child protector cap until it popped off, fell to the floor, and subsequently rolled across the carpet, coming to rest at my feet. She then proceeded to tip the bottle to her lips, pouring the entire content of pills into her mouth. Whoa, hey doc, go easy on the pain meds, I cautioned. That's not the recommended dosage. Kincaid flung the empty pill bottle at the wall and then turned to glare at me, her eyes wide with desperation.
"Oh God, Jacob, it hurts!"
She shouted.
"Please make it stop. Please, Jacob, tell me this isn't the way it all will end. I don't want to become some disembodied brain, writhing and squirming with millions of other brains across an alien landscape of this new reality. There has to be another reason for this."
Breaking completely from protocol, I helped Kincaid to her feet and steadied her for a moment as she wept. Then, taking a deep breath, she managed to regain some of her composure.
"I'm sorry, Jacob. I'm supposed to be the doctor here, not you. I'm all right now, thank you. These sessions with you seem to be getting under my skin. You certainly possess a very vivid imagination, that's for sure. I suppose that explains your career as an art director. Wildly creative. Anyway, I believe we're out of time for this session. Though I'm not altogether certain how productive it was, I'll definitely mark it down in my notes as thought-provoking."
With that, my appointment was over. The hour session spent, concluded. For the first time in months of these scheduled appointments, Kincaid seemed genuinely disappointed to see me stand up and pull my jacket from the coat rack.
"I think I'm going to recommend putting you on a different medication,"
she said.
"While your current regimen seems to be managing your anxiety effectively, I'm thinking that some adverse side effects may be manifesting themselves that could be detrimental to your overall well-being in the long run."
I lifted my baseball cap off the hook and slid it down over my head, adjusting it slightly when a twinge of sharp pain radiated out beneath the brim, the makings of yet another migraine. "Sure," I replied. "Why not? Try something else to make me change my mind. Thing of it is, though, I imagine that said change is already imminent, with or without more medicine. All the mind-altering big pharma drugs in the world can't stabilize or slow the process of evolution, Doc." As I twisted the knob to open the door leading back out into the waiting room, I discovered that it was now blocked by some sort of heavy object that must have fallen or been dropped on the other side. As I struggled to push my way through, I called back. "Maybe I'll see you next time, Doctor. Maybe not. If by chance we do get to share our thoughts again, perhaps the answer will have become more apparent by then." Putting all of my weight into it, I managed to force the door open just wide enough to see that it was a body, the lifeless, decapitated corpse of the receptionist, that was preventing my exit. Her body had apparently fallen to the floor of the outer room with a soft thud as it hit the plush carpet, inaudible and unnoticed as Kincaid had conducted my session. She must have somehow died without so much as a last gasp or scream of agony, as if the event had transpired so rapidly she didn't have time to choke one out. Blood was spattered floor to ceiling across the entire room, and there, standing like a quivering, vitreous spider in the center of the gore and carnage, was a brain. 2 glistening hemispheres with 8 sinuous black legs extending out from the convoluted tissue to hold it suspended upright. Shrinking away from my gaze, the hideous abomination skittered beneath a chair at the far end of the room and cowered there, waiting. It wasn't fear or revulsion that came to mind then, not horror or disgust that I felt either. No, more like recognition, familiarity, kinship. From somewhere back in the office behind me, I heard a distinctly viscous cracking sound, followed by a muffled thud. "No need to rack our brains any longer, Doc," I quipped over my shoulder. "Now, we need to put on our thinking caps. If we all put our heads together, all of us, I think we can come up with an answer that will completely change everybody's mind."
No further comment here, except to say that transformation of some kind is inevitable, whether it be brought on by the bite of an apple plucked from the tree of knowledge, or as the ultimate destination somewhere along the road leading to our collective evolution. We're all headed somewhere, all of us. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, or maybe something else, a breath of thin air, divine, extraterrestrial, or otherwise, to egg us all along.
Episode 29 of the Thin Air Podcast Anthology, Egghead, was written for audio by R.J. Lonsdale. The program was produced, directed, narrated, and told by R.J. Lonsdale. The voice of Jacob Barlow was performed by Carter Langley. The voice of Dr. Kiernan Kincaid was performed by Eden Beckett, and the Old Woman on the Street by Morgana Driscoll. Audio production for this Thin Air episode by R.J. Lonsdale of Flyby Studios. Music compositions used in this episode include Martian Cowboy by Kevin MacLeod, Dark Hearts by Arg Sound, Dark Rage and A Dream Within a Dream, both by COAG Music, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0. This has been an R.J. Lonsdale Flyby Studios presentation.